So in the previous class, we have seen how the linear regression works. Okay, now let us look at how the logistic regression works. Logistic regression, so it is basically, it can be applied on linearly separable data. Okay. Uh, One of the advantage with logistic regression is that what in case you have some outliers present in the data. So whenever, you know what an outlier is, right? A data point that is not that relevant to the current instance, or probably it has a different impact on the given data. Okay, so that outlier, in order to handle that outlier, logistic regression is very, very useful in that case. So we know linear regression, it ranges from minus infinity to plus infinity, whereas logistic regression range is from 0 to 1. Okay, so let me give you an example here to understand more in depth. Okay, towards the right hand side, there's a graph over here, and the graph is with respect to a person based on his weight. Okay, we're going to check his BMI and tell him whether he's obese or not. Okay, so in that case here, I've just marked few points, the weight 60, 75 and 85. Okay, so based on a particular height of a person, on his weight. Okay, so we have corresponding to 60, we tell that the person has zero point 0.3 in his obesity. Like, we are ranging it from 0 to 1, and we are telling, okay, so probably if the person lies lesser than zero point 0.5, we tell him that he's not that obese but can be controlled. Okay, if the value of it is greater than zero point 0.5, ranging from zero point 0.5 and above to 1, okay, we call that as a person is obese. Okay, so from 0 to 1, we have a category. We are just specifying it. We are going to make him fall under this range of 0 to 1. So what did we do here? A person with a range of 60, a person with a range of 60, I draw a line. Okay, and the line coinciding to the point is this. Okay, and its corresponding y value that I'm going to show over here is here. Okay, so the y value of it is 0.3. So a person with a weight of 60, okay, has an obese with a ranging of 0.3. Zero point 0.3 is still lesser than the value of 0.5. So we will consider he's not that obese, or he is not falling under the category of obese. Okay. Next, what did I take? The value of X was 75, and I saw that, okay, he's connecting to the point over here to the line, and the line is projecting to the value of zero point 0.5. So now we can consider that above 75 with respect to this given line. Okay, we have constructed this line with respect to this given line. Above 75, all of these people, okay, above 75, they are actually falling under the obese category. Below 75, they are actually not. Okay, with respect to this line, this is what our strategy. And the third point, when I tell above 85, it is something pointing towards 1. Okay, so then he's highly obese is what we tell. I suppose get an outlier coming into picture, because see the normal range of people over here, suppose let us consider they are ranging from 50 to around 120 or 130. Okay, what in case you have a weight of a person being 400? This is just an example for consideration. Okay, for an outlier. What in case I have a person, okay, he's an outlier right now, because you can see the values of these instances and the value of this person, there's a huge difference in its value. Okay, so this 400, a person whomever I'm considering with weight, so when I'm trying to draw a linear regression line which is connecting to all of these points, okay, so this is the red line which I have joined, right? Now you consider it. When I considered the outlier, how it actually changes. So the same weight of 60%, corresponding value of it, probably it was lying towards 0.1 or 0.15. Okay, fine. Again, the 75%, the 75 weight of the person coinciding with this point over here, okay, his current value was 0.3. Initially, what we thought was above 0.75 is basically a person who is obese. So now I went on to the third category of 85 also. You can see a person over here, 85, when he's drawn, okay, corresponding to the y coordinate, he is still under 3.5 or 4. Okay. Suppose I will consider 110. or 120, a weight of 120, okay, to the linear regression line, okay, and its corresponding value of it is reaching to 0.5. It means a weight of a person with 120. It's not a small number again, okay? Normally when we tell the obese, when we look at the statistics of it, 120 is obviously a person to be as obese. So below that also 110, 100, they'll be obese. But because I just had this, I'm going to satisfy this outlier when I draw a linear regression line that is connecting to this point, from minus infinity to plus infinity. When I'm trying to satisfy this criteria, I get a different statistics. The complete, whatever the operation that we perform now has been changed. So it does not adapt or adhere to the given problem statement, because my problem was I wanted to check it out, telling that, okay, when I tell below 75, the person is going to be less obese, and above 75, the person is going to be obese, and you have to give a mechanism for him, a diet plan for him to come under control. But I had one outlier point in mind, and because I wanted to satisfy that outlier, my statistics completely got changed, which is not the right one. It is not the right prediction, right? So we have to try to eliminate these outliers. So eliminating these outliers will really make the system more effective. Okay. So what we came up here is with the logistic regression, where you're giving a range for it. You're telling, see, everything will fall under this range itself. There will be a threshold value that I'm going to specify. I am not going to consider any value beyond this range. So there will be a clear indication that is being given to it using this logistic regression. That's why with the linear regression, the range of it is from minus infinity to plus infinity. The logistic regression range is from 0 to 1. And the representation of the logistic regression, towards the left hand side, you can see this is the graph where the logistic regression, we will have it directly from 0. Okay, you'll have a slanting line and to 1. So 0 to 1. This is the actual representation of the logistic regression. We are actually going to clip the line that comes from here and the above the line. We make sure that it falls between the 0 and the 1 criteria itself. Okay. So now let's recall the differences between the linear and logistic regression. Or let's finish this logistic regression and just go ahead further. Okay. So logistic regression, it produces the results in a binary format, which is used to predict the outcome of the categorical dependent variable. Therefore, the outcome should always lie between 0 or 1, true or false, yes or no, high or low, upon the threshold value estimation. See, that is what we checked out. We had a threshold value over here. So based on the threshold value of 0.5, we tell that, okay, below 0.5, it falls to 0, above 0.5, it falls to 1, or true or false, yes or no, high or low. Okay. So basically it is a categorical dependent variable, the outcome. And now the representation of the logistic regression, we found a steep, or there is a sharp edges that is being identified over here. So in order to have a smooth transition, we use this sigmoid curve. So logistic regression, so the resulting curve is a sigmoid, which is an S curve. You can see it is so smooth. The curve from 0 to 1, comparatively to here, we had these sharp edges identified here. So to overcome that, we are using this smoothened curve. Okay. This actually removes the effect of outliers. Okay, the reason why we are smoothing over here is we saw how the outliers impact a lot. In order to overcome that outliers, or to remove the effect of outliers, we are having this smoothing curve. Okay, this is the actual sigmoid curve that we will be using for the logistic regression, and the values are transformed from 0 to 1. So we'll have a value which is transformed from 0 to 1, and the curve is the sigmoid curve. And as I told, we have the threshold value that comes into picture over here, which is 0.5. Above the value of it is lies that comes above the 0.5, it moves towards the output 1. Below, it moves towards the output 0. Okay, so the main differences between the logistic and the linear regression. Linear regression, we saw that it has a continuous values, whereas logistic regression, it is a categorical value. We represent it between 0 and 1, and the value of it using the threshold 0.5. Okay, and it solves the regression problems, it solves the classification problems. Linear regression, it solves all the regression problems, because since it's a continuous value from 0 to 1 or minus infinity to plus infinity, so it considers the regression problems. Whereas logistic regression, it is a categorical value between 0 and 1, that is 0 or 1, so it solves the classification problem. The representation is basically a straight line in the linear regression. We saw that it was a straight line that we constructed, right? Whereas in the logistic regression, it is a sigmoid curve. That's the S curve that we're going to use. Linear regression, the value falls between minus infinity to infinity, whereas logistic regression falls between 0 and 1. And it does not require a threshold value, whereas logistic regression, it requires a threshold value. And it has the infinite number of possible values, but here it has very limited number of possible values because it removes the effect of the outliers in picture. It is of the form, we know the linear regression line is y is equal to mx plus c, okay, whereas the logistic regression is 1 divided by 1 plus e to the power of minus x, or y is equal to e to the power of x plus e to the power of minus x. Some of the examples with respect to linear regression is the house prediction. The logistic regression is the weather forecast. So this is about your linear and logistic regression. Here I've written down certain cases over here because previously in our classes with respect to classification, k-means clustering, or with respect to classification problems that we have solved, how exactly it will tell us that the data point that I consider will fall under this category or not, whether a correct classification has happened or not. How do we get to know that? So there should be a mechanism for us to know, okay, whether it is correctly classified or whether it is false positively classified. So for that, there is certain example that I've written over here, which could be helpful to you to analyze it. Okay. So the case 1, let me just start from here. Okay. So what are we doing here is, I have a classification problem. Okay, there are 2 colors that I've specified over here. I have to classify the given balls that I'm into the red or the blue category. The data scatter has happened like this in a 2-dimensional space. Okay, I have it's a positive line. Okay, so M is going to be positive over here. Fine. And I have to classify these 2. Okay, I have to draw a line such that it is going to separate these 2. The balls will fall under the blue category, or everything will fall under the red category. But there are some other points which are lying it out here. So how are we going to handle this? So the points which are above this line, okay, it always seems to be positive. Okay, so I'm writing it as +1. The ones that is below the line, they always take it as -1. Okay, so we know the linear regression line, even this actually is very well applied for the SVM classification. Okay, so if I start with case 1, now I'm going to take 1 point over here. Okay, 1 point, the red point over here. I'm going to take this red point, and I'm going to see that whether it is correctly classified in that range. Okay, so when I consider this point, obviously it's a positive point because it is above the plane. Okay, and the intercept is also positive because it is going in the positive direction of it. Okay, so it's a positive slope. I have this value of this. Okay, let me consider this blue point. If you're getting confused, let us consider that it is the blue point itself. Okay, so the blue point over here, it's a positive point. As per the diagram, it's a positive point. So when I consider this positive point, how do I represent it? So if you remember, we wrote it as y into W transpose of x. If it is lesser than 0, it's a false classification. If it is greater than 0, it is a correct classification. If you remember this statement that we discussed. Okay, so we discussed this in SVM classifiers as well as in our back propagation in the deep learning concept, sorry, in the artificial neural network concepts. So it's the same thing, but I'm just having a recap for this for your for a better understanding. Okay, so intercept is 0 because it's pointing towards the x-axis 0, I mean the coordinate 0 and 0. Okay, so then B is basically going to be 0 over here. Now y is equal to W transpose of x plus B. I'm going to add a unit vector for that. Okay, so I will get y. This is my final output. Y is equal to W transpose of x. Now I have to check that this point, whether it is going to be greater than 0 or lesser than 0. How do I do that? I know this point is having the positive value of it because it's above the plane. Yes. And W transpose of x also, any point that is falling above the plane, okay, will have a positive value. Okay. So both of them, if it is positive, then it is going to be a correct classification. If it is not, if it is value is lesser than that, it is going to be a false classification. Okay. So in case one, we already knew that we are going to take a value which is above the line, okay, this line, and we know that it is positive. So the value of y is equal to mx plus e is again positive. The value of it, okay, is positive. W transpose of x dash is greater than 0 because any point that is lying above the line, and when I consider the value of all of these, it's obviously going to be greater than 0. So when it is greater than 0, it's positive, right? Positive plus positive, it is obviously going to be greater than 0, which means it is correctly classified. Both are positive over here. Let us consider the point which is below the line. Okay, let me just consider the point, another value of it, which is red color, which is below the line. Okay, I know that this is going to be negative. The point is going to be negative. So I have this as negative. And the value of y transpose of x is basically all the points that is lying below it. Okay, so the below value of it is basically going to be negative. That's lesser than 0. Lesser than 0 is negative. Okay, negative into negative is basically a positive term. So obviously I'm going to get the multiplication of these two values. I'm going to get it as 0. It is correctly classified. Okay, so we took blue point on the above of it where we got the correct answer. We took a red point below it. We got the correct answer. Now I'll consider this red point above the line. I'm taking the third case, it's a ulta case. Okay, all the lines above was having blue points over here. All the points below the line was having a red point over here. But I'm taking the red point in the opposite direction, in the opposite part of it. Okay, so I have the red point. So what it is going to tell? So this basically, this point, okay, it's basically going to be negative. Because it's a negative point. Okay, it's negative point, so it is lying on the opposite side of it. Okay, and any point that is going to have y transpose of this all over the above is obviously greater than 0. Okay, so I'm going to take -1 because the point is negative, -1. W transpose of x, any points lying above the line, we consider it to be as greater than 0. It's greater than 0, so it is negative plus positive. I get a value negative. What does negative mean? It is lesser than 0. When I get something which is lesser than 0, it means it is classified incorrectly. This is how even your SVM classifiers or any of the other classification mechanisms that we perform, right? All of the things, they use the same strategy. Case 1, case 2, case 3. Case 1 is if I take the blue points, okay, above the line. Let me just refresh that. So you can see here, if I take any point, okay, which is to that particular positivity, when I consider the line above it, all of them, the W transpose of x is greater than 0. It's a positive point. When I multiply both of them, the value of it is obviously going to be greater than 0. Y into W transpose of X, if it is greater than 0, which means it is correctly classified. In case 1, it was correctly classified. In case 2 also, it's a negative point, but all the points lying below the ones is also negative. Negative into negative gave us positive. So positive, which means it is greater than 0. So it is correctly classified. Whereas the third case was, I'm taking an opposite value of it. So the red point should have been here, but I have considered it on the above side of it, which is a negative value. So I will get a negative value here, negativity, and all the points above it, basically the W transpose of T, whichever I consider, is greater than 0. Greater than 0 is positive. Positive into this negative, I will get a value lesser than 0. So when I get lesser than 0, which means it is classified incorrectly. So for case 3, it is classified incorrectly. Case 1 and case 2, it is classified correctly. So this is how your classification happens. You can let me know if you have any doubts or queries here. To start with multiple regression, let me just go ahead with an example and tell you, okay, what is overfitting? What is multiple collinearity? The main important features here is, see, in machine learning, the independent variable has an important role in deciding the results for the dependent variable. Obviously, that is true. The value of X, it actually implies more in deciding the value of Y. X and Y, because whenever the point is lying with respect to the classification strategy, X takes the most prominent value. Okay, so to show you what this multiple regression mean is, this is one of the example. Okay, I'm just considering the example for your understanding. Okay, now I want to purchase a villa. I'm just really trying to find a villa based on the parameters like the size. Okay, what could be the villa square feet, like what square feet is it constructed. Okay, and I wanted to know which locality it is present, and something like, okay, how many number of rooms it has, what are the amenities it has, something like that. I would be really concerned about it. So which all depends, all these criteria, it actually finally gives me a price, a value of it. All of these input instance, that is the size, locality, number of rooms, the amenities present, all of these things will actually impact the price. Okay, so this forms the dependent variables here. Dependent variables are basically, let us consider, if I want to buy a villa in city somewhere, middle, the heart of the city, when I have to consider, obviously it will impact my price a lot, right? And if I consider the square feet of it also, if I consider, no, I want around 3000 square feet, okay, the villa, or 2000 square feet a villa, again, it is impacting the price. Suppose I go ahead, even we all clearly know, even a square feet of it impacts a lot, or even the car parking. If I have 2 car parking, 3 car parking, for one single car parking, we have to pay so much, right? So it again depends on the price. So which means that the dependent variable has a lot of impact in deciding or resulting the independent variable has a lot, it is given more prominence, okay, in deciding the results of the dependent variable. So independent and dependent, as I told with an example, the size, the locality, the number of rooms, the amenities is present, all of these independent variables actually impact the dependent variable. Okay, so there are certain examples in which some of the independent variables, they have certain correlations. What is this correlation? Correlation is something where the implication of it remains the same. Example, locality and size. I can tell they are correlated to the given problem statement, in the sense, whenever the size of it, if I consider, it also impacts the price. The locality of it, if I also consider, it impacts the price. Okay, so when I have this correlation, the similarities observed, the same similarities which is observed in two different features, we call them to have to be correlated. Okay, correlated. The term itself will tell these two they have a similar correlation, or they are telling that they have the major similarities that has been present with between these two. So when I tell the size, like the size of the apartment or the size of the villa that I'm considering, and as well as the locality if I consider, so these two will actually majorly impact my price. Okay, so what I can do here is I can drop one of the because since it is already correlated, because it's already having the same features of it, why do I consider that as an additional term in training my system? So I can drop that. So I might be thinking of dropping one of the parameters in it. Let's not take the parameter of locality, or let's not take the parameter of size. When I have locality, I need not consider the size. When I have size, I need not consider the locality for my prediction. Okay, because they are correlated, because they have the similar characteristics between each other, so we need not even consider it. Okay, so in certain examples, some of the independent variables form max correlation with the dependent variables. Some may have a very, very least correlation. Like as I told you, the number of rooms, or amenities. Amenities, wherever you consider a villa, right? You get very good amenities, like you might have a spa in it, you might have a swimming pool in it, you might have a party area, or you might have a gym, you might have a walking track, you might have a sports ground. There could be so many villas. When you consider, it's the basic stuff. They will have their amenities. They are the basic amenities which mandatory should be present in when you're going to a gated community. Okay, so the amenities, so when I consider these amenities, right, they just do not that much impact, because it's common among the others. Okay, it's common among the others, so we normally tell that, okay, some are least correlated, but some are very high correlated. As I told you, if I have to get a villa in city, okay, I have to spend a lot comparatively. If I have to go away from city, around 50 kilometers away from city, I would get it in a very, very lesser price comparatively, right? So there's a difference over there, right? So some are really very, very correlated to the dependent variable. Some might be very, very least correlated. So when I'm writing with respect to an equation, I'll be writing it as y is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 into x1 plus beta 2 into x2 plus beta 3 into x3 plus beta n into xn plus epsilon, where b0 is the intercept. We know the equation of the line, or we know the actual values of it with respect to the weights, right? We used to add those weights as well. Okay, so beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, they are the slopes with respect to the x. X is basically here x1, x2, x3. The parameters are the size, locality, number of rooms, amenities, and many more. Okay, so we just normally represent this in this form of an equation for easier understanding. So what are we telling over here? If all of the variables are considered, as I told you, if I consider all of these, the computation actually increases. If all the variables are considered to estimate the results of the dependent variable, it leads to overfitting. As I told you, two main important points there. One is multiple collinearity, and the other point was overfitting. If I consider all of these parameters, see, I know amenities remains the constant, or amenities does not impact more on the price. If I consider, okay, I can keep that. Whereas the size and the locality, they were correlated, which means they had very similar characteristics in analyzing or in predicting the price of the villa. Then when I get one, the other might not be required. Okay, so it's like you can actually go ahead and remove it. But no, if you think, no, I just want to play a safe game and I consider everything, right, it's like you are making your system heavier to work. Okay, so all the variables are considered. If all the variables are considered to estimate the results of the dependent variables, it leads to overfitting. Hence, to overcome overfitting, correlation between independent variables must be estimated. As I told you, I'm going to consider these. What is the importance of a feature? Why do I really need that feature? If I get to know that, right? So correlation between independent variables must be estimated and to be considered. as predicted values for independent variables. So it is really mandatory to identify the correlation between the features. So there's one example over here, which is telling about how do I really apply the multiple linear regression with respect to product delivery. Okay, so product delivery, the delivery of the product. So if I have to identify the collinearity between them and remove that features, how does this will work? Okay, so apply the multiple linear regression for the following data set. I'll just give a crisp idea of it. So there are instances x1, x2, x3 and y. Y is the travel time. The person who's going to take these three parameters and the final is going to tell the output of it. Sorry. So he's going to travel 89 kilometers. A person is going to travel 89 kilometers and he has to give 4 deliveries. Okay. He has to give the food passes 4 places. And the petrol price of it was 3.84 when he was traveling. So the travel time of it is 7 minutes, or I'll tell 7 hours, because he has to go around. And so this is just a data for your understanding. So there are parameters that is given. Okay, with these parameters, based on the number of delivery packages, also the travel time depends, or based on the petrol price, also the travel time depends, or the number of kilometers, also the travel time depends. So we have these independent variables and we have the dependent variables. So you can see the first figure, okay, here, figure A, I've plotted by just considering the x1, okay, onto the independent axis. And for the dependent axis, I'm going to consider the y. So the first graph that I'm plotted is these two, and I've plotted over here, okay. And if I try to draw a linear line that is connecting few of these points, I can see that there's a line that I'm getting it like this, okay. The next one, I'm going to plot x2 with respect to y. Okay, x2 is the delivery and the y. Okay, based on this values of it, I'm going to plot the graph, and I've just written, okay, a line which is trying to coincide with these points. And the third one is basically the petrol price with respect to y, and I got a graph like this. Okay, this is a scattered graph, and trying to do something with this is actually that very difficult. Okay, but what do I do here in figure 1 and figure 2? If you see, right, it's almost similar. Okay, so what I do is it has a property of multi-collinearity, so I'm going to delete one of this feature over here and I'm going to go ahead. Okay, that can be done because as we told, multi-collinearity is I'm getting the correlations between them, the similarities between them. I feel it is more similar, but I'm going to go ahead with it. Okay, but what are the implications of these graphs? See, from from three graphs, we can observe that x1, x2 can be considered for regression analysis. But x3 cannot be considered for regression analysis because the graph is completely scattered. As I told you with the graph 3, the figure 6, 3, the figure C that I'm going to consider with the petrol price, right, x3, you can see that the graph is completely scattered over there. So such scattered graphs, working on with such data is really very difficult, as I told. So what we're doing is we can eliminate that in one case. Okay. So from the three graphs observed, x1 and x2 can be considered for regression analysis because they have the similar kind of a plot and the data are not that scattered. So it is easy for us. But whereas x3 cannot be considered for regression analysis because the graph is really completely scattered. Okay. And in that also, see, x1 and x2, but x1 and x2 are multi-collinearly same. Hence, considering the same or similar data has computational cost additional, as I already specified, because we have these two things, right, coming. We have these two things, the multi-collinearity, because they both have the same characteristics. They both have the same values in predicting the y. Okay. So since they are very similar, they're going to have some computational cost. Sometimes few independent variables x3 might be an important feature in order to perform accurate predictions. So these are just the cases of understanding how it could happen or how we have to really be worried about things. So as I told, if I remove something data like figure C, we told it's so completely scattered. If I individually consider it like that, but maybe it is trying to imply something. Okay, if I consider the same thing for a regression analysis in case of supervised, unsupervised clustering, maybe it has a lot of implication. We don't know. Even there we get a lot of scattered data, right? So we will try to group them into clusters, or we will try to find some similarities between them. So that will also have an impact. So we need to apply the weighted regression analysis. So in order to check out all of these criteria, right, what in case if I remove some of the data which is multicollinearly same, what will happen? Or if I remove some of the data which is scattered, what will happen? So these are all certain predicting strategies that we have to understand, because this will really help us to understand a given problem statement. Because when you look at the data itself, the amount of time that you spend to analyze the data will actually help you to actually go ahead and predict how your outcome should be. So the working with the hands-on with the training data is very much important. You have to analyze your data that is given to you. So one such very good example that was being stated here was with respect to the multiple linear regression. So this is about your multiple linear regression. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. We just have a minute. I think we'll rejoin.